people blamed the young woman for, you saw on social media, there was an individual that got a lot of heat and people thought it was because of her that breakdancing was removed.
Welcome to Sponsorable, a podcast that brings together sports organizers and brand leaders to talk about the business of grassroots sports. I'm Garrett Shea, and I've spent the last 20 years in the youth sports industry, where I've built nationally televised sporting events and corporate sponsorship programs. I created this podcast to bring in experts from the sports industry and have them share what they do in the space and how they do it. My guest today is going to talk about everything from the Olympics to advising brands to what it takes to run a national governing body. Please welcome Senior Vice President of Octagon, Nancy Atufunwa. All right, great. Well, hey, Nancy, it's great to have you on the show. Really excited to talk about the Olympics, all of the great brands that you're working with, and what it's like to work for one of the major global sports marketing agencies out there.
Thanks, Garrett, for having me. I've had the opportunity to watch a few of your episodes, and I really appreciate how you're able to provide advice across the entire sports pyramid. I think that's super important and valuable out there today. My role at Octagon, I'm a Senior Vice President of Olympic and Paralympic Marketing. So what that means is my teams support various partners across the Olympic and Paralympic movement in executing their brand story through Olympics or Paralympics. We do that with activation programs, custom to their category, strategy and insights, digital and social. We integrate talent, athlete talent into that storytelling and really help them understand how they can use the Olympic and Paralympic movement to solve business objectives that they are dealing with holistically.
So, I mean, Olympics is clearly, such a broad and vast array of different sports. Do you find that are brands looking to maybe market to specific sports through the Olympics, or is it just the kind of the more or less the broader Olympic movement?
Yeah, it really goes back to that point of what are the business objectives, right? So, for example, when Toyota was in the movement, now it's Honda, for the LA 28 games, they're looking to probably sell cars. So you're going to need different sports or what are called national governing bodies to support that, because that's where the vast majority of consumers are, right? So at the NGB level in the US, they're responsible for growing their particular sport from age 0 to 100. So you have tons of people going to tournaments over the weekend, traveling all over for club sport, playing in their communities. So those become breeding grounds for partners who are utilizing to sell a product to speak to those consumers. I think partners who may be in it for a brand love play or a brand perception growth play don't necessarily need those type of partnerships, so they can stick really within what's called a National Olympic, and I like to add the Paralympic Committee, an NOC, or an OCOG, which is what we will see in a few years with LA 28. So it really, again, depends on what those business objectives are and how and what assets we need to support those.
So, Nancy, as we look at some of your maybe past clients, right? So, like Toyota Europe, how did they activate? I guess was it prior to the Olympics, or are they activating leading up to the Olympics and then at the Olympics? Maybe talk a little bit about how Toyota Europe, ran their activation.
Yeah, so our team in the UK and Paris developed a very robust experience program for them that started with the Olympic opening ceremony in the Olympics and went all the way to closing ceremonies of the Paralympics. And we pulled through 8,000 guests through a brand house where it highlighted the history of Toyota through sport and how they have supported sport with their technology. It was a safe space for the 250 athletes Toyota supported globally. It was a place to highlight new technology and sustainability that they were utilizing. And it was another footprint for them to showcase how they supported the Paris Games, for example. So that's how we supported them, was understanding what they needed to achieve within this brand house. One, host employees, business partners, athletes, a massive amount. 8,000 is a lot of people to host throughout the games, through both Olympic and Paralympic, and create segments and moments that each group that they are hosting could have as their own.
And now, did you find that like a brand like Toyota Europe, did they do a lot pre-Olympics to really promote that they were, an upcoming partner of the Paris Olympics?
Yes, Toyota as a whole. So our client was Toyota Europe, but as a whole, Toyota did a significant amount of investment in showcasing their partnership from the movement, within the movement, starting really in for the 2018 games, really going deep and robust in how they supported athletes, utilizing technology to support these athletes with their equipment, especially within the Paralympic space, whether it's creating a sit ski, whether it's looking at potentially prosthetics with their automotive technology and how they can help solve and make things more cost effective for athletes.
And did you find, was that a lot of media? Was that paid media that they were kind of curating, crafting their story, and then pushing the message? Paid media, or was it more activations like the your brand house example?
So within the Olympic and Paralympic movement, I like to equate the space to our clients as going to the dance. When you sign the agreement, you receive rights to marks, and that is your ticket to the dance. From there, you still need a dress, to your point, media. You still need a date that could be the an athlete and brand ambassador program. You will still need cars, the limo, employee engagement. How do you engage the employees? So it really is a true space, and I could be biased, but it really is a true space where you are handed marks and you get to create within your rights and tell the story that you want to tell. There's not signage embedded in. You're not going to get this many um, clicks during the game of your sign or this activation at halftime. You really have to figure out how you can tell the story with the marks that are provided to you. I think the IOC, starting with Paris, and we'll start to see more in LA, the IOC and the IPC has done a good job of figuring out ways how to authentically embed partners in. So we support our clients who may have that opportunity. Like how does that brand support within the game, the actual field of play? Again, with Toyota from a global perspective, during the Paris Games, you might have saw the little Paris trucks at track and field carry the equipment up and down. That was a natural integration because that equipment had to go back and forth. You saw Louis Vuitton through their love letter of Paris, of France. That's what their whole activation program circled around. They were very much a part of the podium moment. So the IOC and IPC are doing a great job of figuring out ways how to create those branding integrated touch, but how it does not disrupt the essence of the movement.
Yeah, no, that is, I mean, that is such a, especially when you see it and you're like, man, that was a beautiful integration because to your
Mhm.
point, it is so natural and that's, anybody who's in sponsorship, that's what they always strive for. How do I create something that doesn't feel commercial, feels natural at these key moments throughout the course of, an event or a program? I've got to believe that's one of the, the challenges when you're advising these brands is trying to, understand and get into the essence of who they are, who
Mhm.
and what the potential opportunities could be at the Olympics.
I
Um,
think that the biggest challenge my team tends to encounter, especially with a newer partner into the space, is understanding the rights and the guidelines. It's a very protective ecosystem, and I think sometimes folks might think, okay, we're a partner of this. We get the rings and we get the agitos. And it's like, no, you get this mark plus the rings. And you don't get the standalone rings and this is what this means. And this is how, and your rights are domestic or your rights are global and what it means to purchase into a games, right? Your rights are still domestic. So, really, that's really the first step is really helping our clients onboard into understanding what it all means that they have just secured from a partnership. And then how we will continue to look at that against their business objectives and specific KPIs that we might develop for that partnership.
Now, is it the next Olympics that you're working on is which one?
We have Milan, and we're working right now on both. We're working on Milan and LA. I have colleagues in Australia. They're working on Brisbane already. And so we're across it all. We're across it all at Octagon.
So as you kind of work on, especially working on Milan and LA and your colleagues on Brisbane, um, are do you find like do you have to go to like who is the bodies that you have to go to for approval when you have an idea or you're trying to vet whether some sort of a marketing campaign could work?
Yeah, so that's really the beauty of having an agency partner like Octagon is we're kind of that first defense for our clients to help them understand the passability of a concept. I had a client yesterday, they had this huge idea. So we work with them to figure out how to adjust it to make it what we call approvable or passable when we submit to the US Olympic uh, Paralympic Properties Group, USOPP. I say USOPP, so I had to think about what is the full um, acronym for the audience there, because we are acronym soup in this space, especially an Octagon agency. Whether the concept, whether it's figuring out the measurement plan of the partnership, I have colleagues in our strategy and insights team. They'll come in and support that and really devise the plan so that we are measuring continuously and appropriately to have the final results that we need to present to show and prove against the partnership. If we're looking at a social and digital concept, I have colleagues in our social and digital team that are experts that will come in and support there. If we need creative, if we need a social concept, content, or even what we call in the Olympic and Paralympic space, the look of the games, our creative team will come in. It's super important that we support, as an agency partner, that we support our clients in what ways they need to get the best results at the end. We also serve as um, the other agency. We integrate all the other agencies that are needed. So sometimes it it is not all of Octagon. It will require other agency partners that our client has secured to support them, and we will work collaboratively around the table to execute. So it really just depends on the need, and again, back to those business objectives.
So then, but ultimately, it's the USOPP that you have to go to in order
Hmm.
to ultimately say yes, you can do that, or no, that you can't do that, regardless of
Yes,
where the Olympics is taking place, because it's a I'm assuming it's because it's a domestic rights program.
it depends on your agreement, right? So once we help them massage it, yes, it could go to USOPP because that's who that partner's agreement is with. If they have global rights, then that concept and an idea might go to the IOC or the IPC for review as well. It depends on what marks are being used, what rights you have, and that determines which part of the system that piece of content or creative is being routed through.
Hmm. Now, as with and maybe we'll shift a little bit more towards the U.S. Olympics or the L.A. 2028.
Hmm.
As you look towards the L.A. 28 or 2028 Olympics, are there specific sports that you're interested in taking a look at? I know there's a lot of new sports coming to to that one.
There's two. I'm always going to say water polo. Uh, I used was head of marketing at USA Water Polo for a bit of time in my career. I'm always going to support. They're some of the best athletes. The level of toughness that they exhibit in and out the pool is just always amazing to me. I'm really excited about flag football. I think that's just going to be so cool to see and see young girls playing. We've seen a rise in flag football with girls, young girls, and to put them on the stage is just going to be amazing.
Will be. I too am very eager to see what happens with the world of flag football, especially as I mean, it's currently it's not really a formalized sport in the U.S. So it's like, all right, who's going to be on the team?
Yeah.
And I would say the girls and the boys team, because I think the women's team could be equally as powerful if you start to pull in some of these great female athletes across the United States to represent and play flag football, represent the U.S. And then obviously with the NFL, super interested to see what happens there, if actually current NFL players, end up playing or not. So.
Yeah, I don't want to toss my vote in which way that should go because it is a very strong topic right now. But I will say I've been living in Atlanta, Georgia for the past couple of years, and flag football is pretty strong here. So it's it's interesting, and I think it will be exciting. I will say if I can add a third, cricket
Yes.
because I am curious of what that means for future games hosting. I feel like that
Yeah.
was a
No.
very
Yeah.
strategic inclusion into the sports program. So hopefully that means India comes on and host in the future the games, which I think will be important for the movement. So I'm excited to see cricket as well.
Yeah, that's a great call out because I mean, cricket is growing astronomically in the United States. I look at it as a sport where I mean my agency's been approached to take on some cricket properties, and I'm very intrigued to do so. Just because it is one of the hottest growing sports in the
Hmm.
U.S. So that's a great call out. And here I didn't even realize that cricket was in the Olympics in LA 2028. So yeah.
Yeah, it was added to the program for this games.
Now, and you may or may not know that the answer to this question. When it comes to these new sports, right? They're being added just because the U.S. Olympic or I guess it's the U.S. Olympic Committee has a say in, hey, we want to add a couple of sports that maybe are important. to the United States. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to continue to, like 4 years from now, doesn't mean that flag football is going to be in the 2032 Olympics. And maybe educate us a little bit. Like, are those what are those sports referred to within the Olympics?
Yes. So each hosting country has the opportunity to incorporate a couple of new sports, Olympic and Paralympic wise, for that games that sometimes will carry on based upon how it performs, and sometimes it will not. I think we saw that with breakdancing. It was incorporated as a showcase sport, I believe showcase for Tokyo. Please don't quote me there. But then it was in the official program for Paris. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people blamed the young woman for, you saw on social media, there was an individual that got a lot of heat, and people thought it was because of her that breakdancing was removed, but breakdancing was never meant to continue after the Paris Games. Those of us that worked within the movement knew that breakdancing would not show up in the LA 28 program because their sport program had been announced by then.
Interesting. Yeah. And it is, I mean, different sports come in and out of the Olympics. I know at some point, right, baseball was in the Olympics, and then I'm not sure if I believe they took it out at some point. But it is interesting, like the committee that comes together and makes those decisions, because at the end of the day, right, there's only so many sports that can be part of the Olympics, and because there's so many activities going on, it's hard to
Mhm.
track everything. Do you know how? And you'd reference like the performance of the sport as to whether or not it continues. What do you know how they measure performance? Is it viewership? Is it? Go ahead.
I'm not, I will say I'm not fully sure. I know it is a collaborative process between the IOC, the IPC, the Sport Federation internationally. So that is your FIBA, your FIFA. They will, which FIFA, we all know FIFA soccer. Um, FIFA coming in 26 to the US. We also have the hosting committee for that games period. So it's a collaboration. Um, your international sport federations, they set the rules and the guidelines for the sport. So how many people can compete, how, like what each country gets an allotment. They might test out different sports within the federation to see if they can grow it in time for potential inclusion in the games. But it is truly collaborative. I don't know how they make that final decision. I don't know how they make the sauce, but it is a collaboration between those three entities.
And you had mentioned water polo and in your time working at USA Water Polo. Maybe for those that may not be as familiar with the world of national governing bodies or NGBs, maybe take a little time and explain what your role was there. What's the role of a group like USA Water Polo in and I'll start with in a non-Olympic year, and then what's the role of a USA Water Polo as the Olympics come more near?
So at USA Water Polo or other NGBs, their role is to carry out the rules and guidelines of the international federation in their country. USA Water Polo is little unique because they are a team sport. So they also are fully responsible for the training of their athletes. So they retain coaches, both the head men's coach, head women's coach, and their coaching staff, the training facilities, um, the meals for the athletes while they're within that training period. And we trained the athletes tracking towards the games trained year round. We're also responsible for growing the sport in the US. So that is supporting clubs, that is supporting the growth of water polo within the college space. that is teaching kids to swim and using water polo to do so. So that's water safety. There's a water safety component to USA Water Polo's mission. And that was how we introduced sport, was through water safety. The tournaments for athletes, youth athletes to compete in. It was really the gamut. I used to say USA Water Polo was it was like Burger King. You could have it your way. Like we really went out of their way to figure out how to make sure all of the services that they offered could accommodate anyone and everyone that wanted to engage with with that NGB.
Where's USA Water Polo headquartered?
It's in Orange County, California.
Orange County. Yeah, of course, right. Speaking of the toughness of water polo players, you'd mentioned it. I grew up on the West Coast, up in Northern California. We had an amazing water polo program at Bellarmine College Prep. But like I would come in, and I was a football player. I would come in and like morning workouts, and the water polo team had already been there for an hour, and they literally like their conditioning drill to end practice was filling up one of those like gigantic water cooler jugs, and they'd have to like swim and hold it over their head and then like wait for it to drop back and then fill it back up. And I was like, I was in awe at how strong of swimmers they were, but how like just the duration that they could be in the water. But then I would see them, I'd see them get out of the water and maybe go and play basketball or run around the track. And yeah, they were great water polo players, maybe not such great basketball players.
The joke is the legs don't work out of the water. But no, they're amazing athletes. And I think a lot of people actually think that they are walking at the bottom of, like, they're playing in shallow pools. They are playing in 13, 14 and more depth pools. So this is them keeping themselves up and threading for hours on end. When I would spend time with them at practice, they'd go into the pool about 9 a.m. and they're threading water until lunchtime.
It's incredible.
So 3 hours later, they get out, and it's the stamina that you need is like absolutely insane, and not everyone can definitely do it.
And then the stories they tell about like what happens under the water, and you're like, holy cow! Like it's a battle. It's a very physical sport that you don't. I mean, to your point, like you don't really realize it until you and really probably until you talk to them, and you're like, wow. That it is a really tough sport, and you've got to be tough mentally, physically to succeed at it. Go ahead.
I think that's what the Olympic and Paralympic movement does so well for youth sports and amateur sports in general, because they have the ability to showcase the sport fully in the way it's intended to. So, going back to water polo, when you watch it during the Olympic Games, they have underwater cameras. Stateside, unfortunately, we don't have the luxury to make every single pool be underwater visible. So much of activity is happening underwater for that particular sport. So it's a really great opportunity to showcase how a sport is fully executed. I think that gets young kids excited to try it when they see the games. I think that's why you see an uptick in registrations post games, because they're like, oh wow, I want to wrestle with someone under the water. Sign me up for water polo, mom. But I think that's the beauty of the Olympic and Paralympic movement. So it's very cyclical there in that way.
No, that's a great point. And especially as like these different NGBs and, more of the Olympic sport NGBs who don't have, the media exposure outside of the Olympics to really showcase their sport, but yet they are charged with, all right, hey, you've got to grow your sport. At at a place like USA Water Polo, what were some of the kind of core pieces of that strategy to like how do you grow a sport of like water polo?
It's tough. It really starts with the brand, right? And getting people excited about the brand. What's great about these organizations is they have so many members with a lot of different their own connections and their own talents. And it's important to mine that and seek that out. The work that we did while I was at USA Water Polo wouldn't have been made possible without different board members or different members who saw the vision that had access points to help us achieve. Because you're right, most NGBs don't have a ton of additional financial and human resources to execute everything. So they have to really pick and choose what's important. Within an NGB, you're also responsible for the safe sport training and mandatory reporting and training the coaches nationwide and helping clubs start up. There's so many different things that you have to pull together, in addition building the national team, and then within your games you're the Olympic team, that it is really hard to pick and choose. And I think that's where we were fortunate, is that we had so many board members that were willing to come in and support. And we had members who had resources to support as well.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a number of excellent points. One being the role of the NGB during an Olympic year, and it's not just during the Olympic year, but is to build and field the U.S. national team, and that's what a lot of people are like. Well, they probably fail to understand what is the role of a NGB, and a lot of times it is the singular focus is, hey, that's the group, and because there really is only one national governing body as appointed or recognized rather by the
Correct.
U.S. Olympic Committee. So that's the like in water polo at USA Water Polo, and they've got to have a system likely, right, to figure out, okay, who should be on this national team from a player standpoint. And I'm
Mhm.
sure you have a number of different teams too, right? Ages, genders, right? And
Yes,
so it's like,
you have your pipeline
there you
teams
go.
we're that we're also responsible for training, pulling coaches, dressing them, traveling them, um, and ensuring that they get as much experience as possible, because there are pipeline teams for a reason. Since hopefully there are individuals that rise through and end up on the senior national team and then the Olympic team and then named to the Olympic team.
Yeah, and then which is like the national team is such a big part of what an NGB does, but then it's also to your point, like there's all these other kids that at some point, how are you growing the participation base within the sport, and that is to your point, like helping clubs get up and running. At some point, I look at a group like USA Volleyball, and I don't have any insider knowledge about how they've done it. But years ago, I recall like one of the programs they had created open gyms where it was like, hey, we just want to make sure that any girl or boy who wants to try volleyball can come into the gym and try it. And so they worked across America to have this open gym program. I was like, man, that is a great thing to be able to deploy, is like, how are we getting the youth in all of these communities playing our sport? And I would imagine like that's probably one of the challenges with like a USA water polo is you got to have access to a pool. To your point,
Mhm.
you've got to know how to swim. You've got to probably be a pretty good swimmer. Right. It's a lot like American football in the sense that, man, you got to have a lot of equipment. You've got to have access to somebody teaching you, like, and that's the genius of, hey, we don't need tackle football in the Olympics. flag football because all you need is a flag belt and cleats and a football, and you only need 5 kids instead of 22 or the actual number. So
Well, I think that's the beauty of within speaking particularly about the U.S., because NGBs also have the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee where they receive funding and they're able to collaborate on some of those topics that you brought out, diversifying the sport, right? Bringing in kids that may not have had exposure to those sports, but they're talented and they want to try. Ways to geographically diversify the sport, right? Water polo is super strong, for example, in in California. It is growing tremendously well. While I was there, the South was a priority. So we had teams that would come to Atlanta regularly. They're growing clubs. It's just making sure that there is an opportunity for all athletes that want to play and removing that barrier. And I really think that's the role that NGBs play within their particular sport, is removing that barrier to access.
And your role at USA Water Polo was partnerships, right? Was it activating and selling?
It was literally all functions of marketing ran into me and my team. So I collaborated with another colleague that really led social, digital, and comms, but brand sat under me: partnership sales, partnership activation, merchandise, athlete support, because we would dress the athletes for their competitions. So really, and actually, I will also add out of water support for the athletes. We created, while I was there, an internship program, because that's another thing that a lot of these athletes, including young athletes that are showing promise within their sport base, they become what I used to call, or what we used to call, stall dreamers, right? Because they have to put something on the side for this athletic goal that they're trying to achieve. And oftentimes it's their education that is stalled a little bit, or it's their career. And so we worked with different companies to create internships where we had already pre-negotiated the number of hours a week. We'd already figured out the financials of the compensation for the internship, and they would have to interview, develop a resume, all those things, and then balance their job and training. So it was super important to make sure we supported the athletes in all components so that they could have success.
Yeah, that sounds like a tremendous program. I mean, just thinking about what it's going to do for the athlete post, national team, right? I mean, you're hopefully setting them up and getting them on a path for what should be a successful career. So that's I was not aware of that, and my guess is there's not. And maybe it is now a best practice at amongst NGBs, but I spent some time working with a number of NGBs, and it didn't seem like there was anything like that, when around the NGBs I worked with. So,
I mean, again, I was lucky. We had a board that saw the value of that, and they again opened up their connections. Boards become very important when it comes to NGBs. There are different talents and resources that each board member can contribute to ensure that NGB is successful. So we saw the value of it, and we worked very collaboratively with them.
How big was and it doesn't have to be exact, but how big was your board at USA Water Polo, roughly?
Oh, so we had a professional set of board members, which were probably 8. And then we had athlete representatives, retired and current. that also sat on the board.
Yeah. So what would probably be a smaller board, but you were building really, strong relationships, it sounds like, and you probably had a very engaged board. Sounds like if, they were
Extremely.
working, right? They were actively contributing. They weren't just showing up to one or two, board meetings a year.
No, absolutely not. I mean, right after Tokyo, we had a board member. I could not travel to go support an athlete that went on a media run. And it was near where this board member lived. And we were like, hey, can you go? You can get this experience, but really also need you to help support. And they loved it. They're like, absolutely, let me take off. And they loved it. So, lots of collaboration. That's what's really going to create the success, whether it's with your board as an NGB or even as a youth club. A lot of collaboration with your NGB. They're doing their best to support you in your growth. NGBs have a lot of collaboration with their International Sport Federation and their National Olympic and Paralympic Committee, which for the U.S. is Team USA or the USOPC. None of it works without collaboration and communication. I, at water polo, we made commercials, never meant for, through our brand campaign, Water Polo Tough, never meant for television. We shared with the USOPC along the way the entire time, so they had full awareness. When it came time for the Tokyo Games and leading up to the Tokyo Games, they had extra inventory on TV and they slotted those commercials.
Nice.
Like that just wouldn't happen without the communication and collaboration. So it's just those two are the most important for success.
Do you have a favorite brand that you were able to work with or bring on at USA Water Polo?
They were already established, but it would be Tier, because we worked to design a new water polo suit. A lot of people think that the water polo suits and swimsuits are the same. They're not. Water polo suits suck you in because part of the game, we talked a little bit earlier how it was a little bit about wrestling, if you will. There's some underwater leg stuff going, but people can grab at your suit. So water polo suits have to have the least amount of grab, so your opponent doesn't grab you and control you. Whereas a regular swimsuit, I could grab you and control you with your suit. So we worked with Tier to redesign the water polo suit and influence some new technology that they had in materials to create a suit that our water polo athletes would love.
Interesting. Were you able to bring in any, I'll call them non-endemic brands that were willing to support water polo, or is that that's probably a hard one?
That's very hard in the NGB space, is the non-endemic, especially at the mid-tier and smaller size NGBs. I think my colleagues at some of the larger NGBs were definitely had a little bit more success there. I think, during my tenure, my focus was really about the brand, supporting the partners we had. We had some growth with partnerships, sustaining, because it was also during COVID. Unfortunately, most of my time at water polo, but it was really about focusing on brand health, creating and reestablishing a brand that people loved and had emotion towards, retuning it. We didn't have to change much. People feel very strongly about USA Water Polo Shield and the mascot Shieldy. So how do we fine tune some things to really create that connection even more and showcase that connection outside of people who know it every day because they play it?
Now, switching back to maybe more the brand consulting side, maybe talk about a couple of corporate brands that that either you've worked with in the past or you're currently working with that you're able to share.
So early when I started in the Olympic and Paralympic movement, my role was to help new partners enter. So two of those partners were DeVry Education Group and Chobani Yogurt. What I love most about those two partners is those categories did not exist in the movement. Private section education, Greek yogurt, those were new categories. What a lot of people don't realize about the Olympic and Paralympic movement is we are the only country that is not government aided, financially supported. So through media dollars, through sponsorship dollars, that is how the athletes are supported in their training and daily lives so that they can compete. So if they have to narrow a couple of categories to get some additional partners who want to support these athletes in their training and competition, I think they'll slice it a little bit more.
So let me ask you. Let me ask this question because I'm always curious from an agency perspective, right? So you take a brand like Chobani, and I know
Mhm.
this isn't really applicable to the Olympics, but I'll just use this as more of because I think this is an issue that a lot of, and I'm more of a sponsorship seller, so this is definitely an issue that I come up with, and that is all right. So we have Chobani, we slot them in as the Greek yogurt partner. Well, then Chobani comes out with a new product that is right one of these like shake up kind of yogurt shakes, and they were like, well, we want to kind of market this product. If an additional fee is tagged on to so I'll keep using Chobani. So hey, Chobani, you want to do the yogurt shake as a new category? As an agency person, I assume that you kind of accept or expect there to be an additional fee to also take up that category? Or is it something that you're like, we're already in the Greek yogurt category. We don't really, we shouldn't be paying an additional fee to market a new product that we have.
So our goal as the agency partner is to upfront make that narrow category as wide as possible so that when that new Greek milkshake yogurt milkshake comes up, it fits right into the category. So
Interesting.
if we negotiated well on your behalf, uh, that's a conversation that doesn't really occur. And I think we do a good job at Octagon doing that, if I have to brag a little bit. But sometimes, yeah, you are correct. Sometimes the product is such a departure from what their category is that it will require an additional spend. And for the agency and the brand, it's really our role in that is to help them understand the pluses and minuses that might come from that and what that could look like if, say, through this category, we were able to keep X partner away from this space. If we don't take this additional product, we know our competitors are also building this product. Does it give them an entry point? Because within, any sports property, including the movement, you could have brands that might have competing. They might be competitors in some ways, but they're now also collaborators because we're all here at the end of the day, especially in the Olympic and Paralympic movement, to support the athletes.
Yeah. No, interesting. And I apologize. I kind of got us off track there, but I'm always very curious in the in the category definitions and how that all gets chopped up. So I appreciate you going into detail with us on that one.
Yeah, our goal is to find every product that, and you can take the airline category, right? It's not just commercial airline, but we'll look for semi-private, private, 6-seater aerial plane. Like we'll figure out all the things, helicopters that go into the air, and try to merge that into that category definition.
And the other brand that you had shared was DeVry, being the private education group. And what's this? An organization like DeVry, is it just brand awareness that they're seeking?
No, so at the time, so this was back in 2011, 2012, DeVry, private sector education in the US did not have a strong reputation. Very strong in places like South America, in other countries and continents. They had a strong brand recognition, brand perception, not strong in the US. So the Olympic and Paralympic movement is also known, their partners, as the best of the best. We have the best, we feel the best of the best athletes. We have the best of the best companies supporting them. So for DeVry, it was, it, it solved something for them and for the USOPC. For DeVry, they got to be part of this company you keep, of the best of the best companies, but also what DeVry provided to the U.S. Olympic Committee and Paralympic Committee was educational opportunities for the athletes. These athletes are training around the world. It is very hard for them to go to brick and mortar school, especially at the college level, and be consistent and come out 4 years later with a degree. Athletes might come out in 4 years and still be a freshman. Or they've been to this school and that school and this school and that school. And so they have a hodgepodge of credits. What DeVry allowed these athletes to do was to go to school online, either do their basics that you need, your basic requirements that you need at college, so your first 2 years. And then when they retired, those credits would transfer into a brick and mortar and they would finish 2 years later. Or if they wanted to, they can continue all throughout the 4 years. They can obtain a master's degree. So the goal was to really help these athletes and support them to and through their training with their education. So when they retired, they were a lot closer to their professional goals and dreams. And for DeVry, they were able to utilize those athlete success stories to help shape the perception of their brand and continue to grow it.
And that story that you just told about DeVry, that encapsulates everything I love about sponsorship, because it is always, there's always a very well thought out strategy, and they are truly looking to solve something that most people don't even realize when you just see their logo up there on the commercial, or or the billboard, and so that's a great example. And it makes me think, man, there's other sports like minor league baseball has the same issue. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, Nancy, it's been great to have you on. If folks do want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do so?
My LinkedIn at Nancy Atufunwa.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being on Sponsorable, and it truly has been a great experience for me to have a chance to get to know you a little bit and learn from you.
Thank you so much for having me on.